Hi everyone, I'm Bill Harrell and welcome to our program. On this program we're going to be talking about how you can improve your sexual harassment training. Joining me is a sexual harassment guru. Her name is Julie Still-Rolin. And we really want you to really understand the things that are going on in our society today and why it's so important that if you own a company, you manage a not-for-profit, that you take a hard look at why you should look at improving your sexual harassment training. Well, Julie, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Billy. I'm happy to be here to discuss this issue.
You know, I think we really need to start off with, people might not know exactly what sexual harassment is. It's in the paper, it's on the news. I mean, it's everywhere now. What's going on with sexual harassment?
Well, sexual harassment in the workplace is inappropriate behavior of a sexual nature that can cause a hostile work environment. It can range anywhere from jokes that degrade someone based on their sex or gender, to inappropriate actions that make someone feel uncomfortable, to quid pro quo, which is this for that. Someone asking for sexual favors in exchange for something like a promotion.
So it can really be hard for someone who's being sexually harassed, right? I mean, in other words, it's a tough thing. And a lot of the times as a consultant, you have to come in and look at an organization, and maybe people that are in the organization say, well, that's our human relations department's problem, you know, dealing with this. How do you address that question? Why should a consultant come in and help?
Well, consultants are specializing in something. So for me, I research sexual harassment and read case studies and gather as much information as possible. Human resources employee may be responsible for making sure that employees are trained in sexual harassment, but they may not have the specialization in the training. And so I've actually had human resources employees contact me because they see the need for enhanced training.
So you see, I guess, a lot of situations. What do you see are some of the current problems with sexual harassment training? You know, what's not working out there?
Well, the sexual harassment training that I had was generic, and it was online, and anybody could answer the quiz at the end without even having read the information. And it also was not realistic. The scenarios were laughable at best, and a recent article in the New York Times even said that it may be making sexual harassment worse at work because it's sort of a joke.
Julie, in your work history, you've actually experienced sexual harassment. How does it help you better understand what an organization should do because you've had that experience?
I have experienced sexual harassment in many different workplaces, and I suffered the consequences often in silence. And what I didn't want to do was quit my job, because usually I had worked hard to get the position and I was being degraded or that was being threatened, and I couldn't quit because I have children to take care of and bills to pay, and there aren't many options. But what I really wanted to do was to be able to have the knowledge and the tools to handle sexual harassment properly. And so that speaks to why I became the sexual harassment guru, because I needed the understanding and I wanted to, really find those tools and help others be able to handle sexual harassment.
Now let's talk about training, because as a consultant, that's what you do. Can you customize your training to different organizations? Everything from a bank maybe to a garage or something where people repair cars. I mean, can you help them out with really customizing it?
Yes, customization is key. One of the problems with current training is that it's generic, and so every organization is different and has its own culture and structure. So whenever someone contacts me to help them enhance their training, I gather as much information as possible so that I can cater to that specific structure of their organization. A bank is going to be different than a university. It's going to be different, like you said, than maybe a garage.
Well, when you look at that, how do you do it? How do you get in there and really understand the culture of an organization? What's your...
Well, it takes a lot of research and understanding of the different dynamics of like a manager and supervisor and the team. And so I gathered that information, like how is their organization structured, and then also gathered the demographics. So if it's one male that's overseeing a lot of females, then that's going to be different than if you have, multiple genders.
So you may be dealing with the owner of an organization, but you also may be dealing with an HR department, right?
Right.
It's helping getting that information and what you need to know. When you think about training, you want it to be something that people don't dread, oh my God, we're going into another session, whatever. So what is your approach? How do you make it to where it's fun, memorable, all those type of things that people really do understand the concepts that you're trying to get to them?
Well, I use entertainment and role playing. And with entertainment, I try to employ some humor because I want to break the ice and use it as an educational tool. So not to dismiss the seriousness of the issue, but to be able to teach people so that they can relate to, the scenarios and the solutions as well. And with role playing, I got this idea from when I was a teacher. I, didn't know really how to prepare for an active shooter until I had active shooter training, and then I saw and was given the tools that I actually needed to feel more prepared for that. You can't prevent incidents from happening, but you can be more prepared with the proper tools. So role playing is memorable and entertaining often, but it really gives someone a better idea of the scenario they may face.
And another thing about role playing is you may put people in the situations they've never been in before, and so they would have to see, what it means to them, and that type of thing. So role playing is very important in your training, right?
Right, because you may think that you could handle something, but until you've actually been faced with the situation, it's a little bit different. And sexual harassment is not easy to deal with. It's not easy to tell someone that they are doing something inappropriate. So actually having to face that, really makes a difference.
And so many times, if you can kind of, prevent it from happening early on, it's so much better than having it extend out. And so is that what the training helps people to learn, is how you can cut something off real quick?
Yes. And really giving a better understanding of what is sexual harassment and what is not sexual harassment. So then when they can recognize it easily, then it's easier to deal with proactively.
Well, let's talk about your charges, to improve sexual harassment training. Is it affordable for small companies and large companies?
Yes, I can be flexible in what I charge, and so again, I gather as much information as possible, and that includes the budget. And when we think about the price, the cost of training, though, it's just like with safety, the cost of litigation is so much more, so it's more of an investment.
We put information on the screen about how to get in touch with you, but just let's make sure people know exactly, how to get in touch with the Sexual Harassment Guru.
Okay, well, my website is sexualharassmentguru.com, and harassment is spelled with one R. Most people think it's two. And my email is sexualharassmentguru@gmail.com.
And of course, they can call you on. You have a number they can call you at. And so, do you have hours? Do you, have best times for people to call and that type of thing?
Well, I have a very flexible schedule. So the best way to contact me is to subscribe to my email through my website, and or to just email me directly.
Well, let's back up just a minute and talk about the harasser, because I think, we've talked about role playing and things like that, but in your experience and your research and that type of thing, who is the harasser? Who is the person out there that's causing the sexual harassment?
I've often faced, different types of harassers. And this is important because I've had male friends who say, well, I don't know if I'm harassing. So we really need to look at maybe, and I can't claim to know all of the motives, but maybe trying to understand a little bit of that. And in research, I've found that they're usually someone who is a bully, who may have been bullied, or is just a bully. And it can be someone who feels threatened. So if it's a competitive environment and they feel threatened by someone, sexual harassment may be used as a tool to demean that person. And it can also be someone who is not happy with the changes in gender roles. That's a common one. But understanding that there is usually a reason, it's because of power. And when we talk about power, some people disagree with that and say it's just about sex, but in my experience, it was not necessarily that the harasser knew that they were stripping me of my power per se, but when I couldn't control what happened to me at work, then I felt powerless. And so there is this underlying power struggle. You wouldn't do that for someone that you're just attracted to.
Now let's talk a little bit about the lawsuits and claims and people being suspended and that type of thing. A lot of that's in the media nowadays, and seems to be more and more of it. And why is it important that companies look at a term called risk mitigation? How can you help them with that?
Again, risk mitigation, you assume that you can't prevent a claim from happening or an incident from happening. So what you want to do is to be as proactive as possible. And what's happening in the media now is a movement saying that our culture is no longer going to tolerate sexual misconduct and sexual harassment. And so companies can either get on board or they stand at risk for claims and litigation. And to enhance your training is one step in improving the cultural environment and preparing employees and protecting your company.
And you think about, a sexual harassment lawsuit, the expenses involved in that, and what you charge for the training. If you can just help prevent some of that, it's really a payback for the company, right?
Right, and because if sexual harassment is established that it happened, then they're going to look at the organization and say, well, what did you do? And if they say, well, we had this training once a year online, then it may not be as effective as if you had enhanced training.
Okay, let's look at what we call outsiders coming into an organization. As an outsider, how can you do a better job than possibly somebody inside an organization?
Well, with studies, I've seen that when people hire consultants, they're more effective because they're not seen every day. And I have some authority over the subject because I spend my off time even talking about sexual harassment and reading case studies and researching and gathering as much information as possible.
And finally, the idea of making training memorable, so people actually leave the training and they know what to do. Why is that so important?
Well, it's important for many reasons because you want people to truly understand sexual harassment and know how to deal with it. But, an incident may not happen immediately after my training. It could be 6 months down the road. So you want it to be memorable for that reason, but you also, again, want to protect the company because if they're asked, what did you do? And they say, well, if they're going to ask the defendant and the plaintiff in a case, did you have sexual harassment training? And if they can't remember the training, then it's going to just be clear that it wasn't effective.
And Julie, once again, how can they get in touch with you?
My website is sexualharassmentguru.com and my email is sexualharassmentguru@gmail.com, 1 R.
And of course they can call you, and the number on the screen there,
Yes.
and so forth. Well, Julie, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Billy.
And thanks so much for watching this program, and we'll see you next time.